Welcome to our show. This is, I believe this will be episode 5 of To the Woods. Episode 4 hasn't come out yet, but that's just kind of on pause because of some things that the women that hunt are doing, and we didn't want to put something out before they got to put something out. But today, I've got Phil Nelson from Phil's Archery, not Phil's Archery Supplies. I always say that. Phil's Archery Shop is as how it is on Facebook and in the internet, I believe. Phil, I've known you. I met you probably the first time at Scotia and Bowman at a TANS traditional archer shoot that was there. And I think I met you on a Friday night, and on Tuesday I was buying a bow in your garage. Tell us a little bit about the history and you and getting into traditional archery and in archery in general.
Well, when I got into it, I was just looking to bow hunt, basically. That's where I wasn't into no tournaments, nothing like that. And but I didn't know anybody into it. And when I went to the course and took the training, that's when I met some guys that I already knew, like Brian McDonald. Well, I met him. He's from the Passage here. He went to school with him and met him in the, even seen him in the woods with his bow before back then. But
wow.
Then just got in with everybody that he was involved with, and it went from there. I just got hooked on it big time.
Yep.
So
now, what are we talking about? When was the starting year? Can you remember what year you took the course?
Yeah, I took it in '89.
'89. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
first year.
From '89 you took that, and now you're actually the chairperson.
Chairperson for the Bowhunter Instructors Association. Yeah. And I'm past president of the Bowhunters Association, and I was treasurer. I was just always involved with all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's met a lot of people in the province here and New Brunswick and all around, right? So.
Yeah. And your shop is actually out of a garage at your place, and you're out in Cow Bay, right?
Yeah.
I've been there a few times, Phil. I think most people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think today, if you don't mind, there's so many things that we can talk about, but I haven't really had the opportunity to have a conversation with anyone that was sort of specifically tailored to either brand new hunters or brand new bow hunters, as the case might be, or people who are perhaps just started to bow hunt, maybe with like a season or two underneath their belt. If I asked the question, and it'll be a conversation, outside of taking the course, that's really the first thing. Is that the first thing you should get out of the way, or maybe should you look and try to find a bow first? What are your thoughts?
No, you need to have a bow, but in order to get that bow, you got to see somebody that's into it. You got to go around to, there's many shops in Nova Scotia or wherever you're at, and go talk to somebody there. And then nowadays, when everybody comes in, they do a lot of research on the internet, YouTube, all that stuff is available, right? It's in the last couple months, there's a lot of people been switching to from compound to trad.
Yeah.
It seems to be a lot of people asking those questions, and they already got the bow course and that. So
right.
That's basically. I know you started trad right off the bat, and never went the other way. But some people
that's not entirely true, because I had the accident.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I had to shoot compound. I borrowed my son's bow for that one season because I had a broken arm. So, yeah. But yeah, so it's interesting that you say that you're seeing some people go, because quite often, as is the case when we teach the Bowhunter safety course, we ask usually at the beginning of the course, how many people have hunted before, and majority of the hands have usually gone up. Then we say, why are you choosing now to explore bow hunting? And there's lots of different answers, from earlier season and being able to sit in the warm weather and the additional oh my goodness, what am I trying to say? not the amount of skill that it takes, but the effort. It's a little bit, they like the challenge, I guess, is the way that they will often put it. And I agree with that, but you're saying that now it just this year, you've seen enough people that have actually done the compound bow hunting and are looking for even the additional challenge, doing it with the stick and string. That's it. I mean, I'm a trad guy. I love that, right? I mean, I love to see that. What do you think's triggering some of that?
I'm not sure. Even maybe it's the internet. Maybe people are watching more stuff there, and that's doing it. Even one guy, he doesn't even hunt, right? He never did, not interested in it, but brought his wife in, and she bought a bow, and now he's got a trad bow, and his compound has been sitting here for 3 months, and he's been shooting the recurve.
Wow.
So I said, your bow's all ready to go here. Yeah, I'll get it eventually here.
yeah. I'm busy with something else right now. I got this this silly bent stick that I'm trying to figure out.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, I certainly, it's what always kind of called to me, and I don't pretend, to really anticipate wanting to get away from traditional archery. As I stated already, I have used a compound bow for a hunting season because I had an accident and broke my arm, and the following year wasn't strong enough, and so it certainly wasn't ethical to try to go out and not be shooting well with the stick.
That's basically the same thing happened to me this year. Same thing. So what I did, I ended up putting together a compound bow and turning it down so I could pull the bow, because there's no way. I tried to shoot my recurve, but after 8 shots, then I realized that no, this isn't gonna. I didn't feel comfortable trying for a deer. So
no, and so these guys are working it in the opposite direction. Now, at the last Bowhunter education course that I did, and we did manage to get a few in this year. But in Halifax area, we just had the one, and I think we were 26 people that.
I think 28. There was a few canceled at just the last.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm trying to remember. And it was 26 or 27. And when I asked how many of them had hunted before, expecting normally for majority of hands to go up, and then kind of follow suit, ask the question, oh, why are you guys and girls switching from, rifle hunting to bow hunting? That's where I was expecting to go. But it was like half and half. It was like 13 of them had done some type of hunting before with a rifle, but there were near 13 individuals that had not hunted before. And I thought that was the first time that I had gone to a class as an instructor and seen that type of ratio. Which I thought was great anyway, whether you're coming from one side, from the rifle to do it, or this is how you're choosing to get into hunting. I'm happy to see them doing it. But that's quite the task to go straight to bow hunting. It's certainly not possible. It's just there's no sort of background already in the rifle hunting, which I would say is a bit of a head start as you start to learn to do that. So regardless of whether you're getting into traditional archery gear or compound archery gear, or even for that sake, a crossbow, if with a new hunter, we often get asked, does this course, the Bowhunter Safety Course, teach me about how to hunt, how to become an effective bow hunter? And it's kind of a middle ground, isn't it? Because what we're trying to teach is how to go into the woods safely and come out safely. And there is a lot of things that you're likely going to learn in the course that are going to help you hunting. But once you have the course, it's, what are the next steps? What advice do you give someone?
I know a lot of the students will always say our instructors are the top notch there, and they learn a lot from that. A lot of a lot of experience there, and that's a big part.
Yeah.
That's very good that we got some real good instructors.
I know that I came up quickly through it, from brand new bow hunter to instructor, and I had the time to apply to it. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
a lot of hours in the woods, so I kind of caught up in a lot of ways. But for the 13 individuals that showed up that day that had never hunted, or had never hunted themselves, I'm not saying that perhaps they may not have gone out with somebody at some point, but what what what's the first thing? Like, scouting is terribly important,
Yep. Yeah.
but learning how to scout is a tough thing to do on your own when you're not sure what to look for. What are some of the things when you're bow hunting, if you're going to be setting up a stand? And understand, of course, you've been hunting in the area that you've been hunting for a very, very long time. So you kind of understand certain travel corridors already, and then the way cuts affect deer. There's a lot of things to learn. But
Yeah.
someone was going to go up there to Chignecto. Let's use Chignecto. A brand new,
Okay.
he's going to go up to Chignecto to bow hunt, because that's sort of the holy grail of sorts, because it's a bow hunting area only. How do you tell them to scout? What are they looking for?
Well, the trails, big thing. I know that I've seen a lot of spots up there, wintering areas, right?
Yeah.
But the deer are not. When I hunt up there, the deer are not in those areas.
No.
They're just not there.
No.
They're in the thicker spots, the swamps and stuff like that. And I mean, if you're walking in through the woods and you come to a swamp, now you don't really want to go down into there, and your feet wet and how you're going and stuff. But the deer don't mind it, right? So
Right.
you gotta. I find that the outskirts of those swamps where they start wandering out, and then a lot of people are hunting over bait, so it doesn't matter if there's no deer there. Well, eventually they'll end up being there.
Yeah, and that's
Changes their travel areas by putting bait out. So
yep. And Chignecto does allow bait, correct?
yeah, it does. Yeah, not for bears though. No bear on no bear baits in the sanctuary.
Okay, all right. So I mean, you could potentially drag in apples and carrots, like a lot of guys do, in order to hunt over that. But I like what you said about these swamp areas or these thickets that nobody in their right mind in August is going to start, or even earlier, to be honest, to start scouting and pushing through. But there's all kinds of usual trails coming in and out of those areas. And the idea there is, if you walk around it, you'll find these little travel corridors, these paths coming in and out. Game trails is really all they are. And then from there, it's not as hard to follow a game trail that's used a lot as perhaps someone who's new to hunting might think. That if you're looking for them, you should be able to see them.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then you will learn about things like scrapes and rubs, right? Mostly you'll find old ones in the summer when scouting. Do you hunt rub lines or scrapes, or have you in the past?
I have, and it just seems as though I haven't done it for a while, but I'd hunt these scrapes and just nothing would happen. They'd come and scrape them, fix them up when you weren't there. They're not stupid. They're circling that scrape to see if there's anything around it first. That's what I think.
Right? But in a lot of ways, they'll do the same thing with apple piles.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
right.
Same thing.
And so I hunted over a scrape this year, a serious scrape, for the first time concentrating hunting over a scrape, and I had 4 or 5 different bucks tend that scrape, but there was I only had one daylight picture of a buck this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't a matter of whether or not I put enough time in.
Yeah.
They just were not moving in that area. I'm going to
Mhm.
have to make some adjustments. I need to find where they are moving. So I got to move 15, 20 minutes down their walking trail in order to try and hit them up a little bit better next year. But yeah, it was a weird season for me, to be honest. Now, what about gear? Like what we talk about in the bow hunting safety course, we talk about hang on stands, we talk about ladder stands and blinds and natural blinds, and then the pop-up blinds, all of this. If someone's getting brand new into it, what is the advice you would quite often give to somebody looking to be successful?
Yeah, to get a ladder along with the stand, like
Yes.
not just a ladder stand, but if you're going to be on a tree, use the ladder. Don't be using them screw-in pegs and you know, first off, they got to should be removed all the time, and that. So, but I'm getting older, so I'm into the blinds now. For bears, I'm out of the stand for sure. I don't like being on the ground with them. But for deer, I feel more comfortable because, you stay there until it gets dark and then you're coming out, getting down out of the tree. It's like you had your accident. Well, that's like something that I don't want to see. So
Yep.
I don't need to go up the tree anymore, for a deer. If I can put the pop-up line and put brush around it so that it can't be seen, and have it enclosed, like not out in anywhere in the open. I got it in off the trail, like, or in off the there, and often like if you're putting bait out, and I know the deer, the bucks especially, they'll be there, but they won't be out in front where the apples are or the carrots are. They're skirting around those.
Right.
Sometimes, they're nervous of them, and you can tell that more than years ago when the deer would come in and wouldn't pay no attention to you. They just come in and get their apples and stuff. But now it's like, it's almost like the bait piles are danger.
Right.
It's
Almost like they're being educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cameras, that's a good, excellent tool for
Mhm.
sure for on trails and whatever, see what deer's around. But the like we talked before about the cell cameras.
Yep.
You
Yeah. At the
get
shop the other day. Yeah.
yeah.
They do.
So
They're a fantastic tool.
yeah.
And it's an interesting conversation, and I think one that we should probably be having more often, in my own opinion, because I'd rather hunters sort of set any rules, if we were going to set any different rules and regulations around
That's
them.
right. Yeah.
If we don't have the conversation, then government will potentially just do something without a whole lot of consideration. So
Yeah. And this year, the book had it in it about the drones, right? You're not allowed to use drones for it, and that was a known fact before, because
it was more clarification that was added
but
this
now
year.
they got it added. Yeah. So that's what you're using the drone for, the camera, right? It's all to do to see where the deer,
Right.
see where
I would hope so.
whatever.
I
Yeah.
hope you're not harassed here.
No. Yeah. And the cell phone cameras, well, they're instant almost now too, right? So is it compare both of those together? Is it legal or is it not legal, right?
Well,
Or is there something that we want to change in the rules? Should we? I'm not sure. We'd have to look at that and
yeah,
have a be nice if it was the hunters that made that decision and not the government, right?
right. No, I agree. And this is kind of the reason why I've been having the discussion, and I try to push it on Facebook every once in a while. And I'm poking, a stick into the bear, and trying to get people to have a conversation about it. Because and if we don't, again, I think the decision is sort of removed from those who might have the experience and the knowledge to be able to make the right decision.
Yeah.
You know, I know that BC recently made that announcement that they weren't going to be allowed during season. So
Okay.
you could use them, and I don't know. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go. I know guys that are using them responsibly during season, but big apple piles and really expensive cameras.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
my dad would flip out if
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, like that
Yeah.
he wouldn't consider that hunting. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but that's a tough one. You know, technology is always advancing,
Yeah.
and not all of us choose to even hunt with a bent stick anymore. Rifles are another example. Scopes are another example
Yeah.
of technology, and you know, you can't say no to technology. It it's there to help. It's there as a part. It's a part of the industry,
Yeah.
and a lot of those monies go towards conservation projects, I should say, especially in the States, right, with the tax
Yeah.
that we have on those kinds of things. So, you know, it's an important piece of the puzzle, and it needs to be looked at by those who know. My
Yeah. I
opinion.
wonder if, and I haven't heard, is drones allowed in the United States and in some of the states down there?
I, as far as I know, the majority of places have some type of fly. Like if you can't fly over the area you're going to hunt without at least one night or 24 hours after you fly into a spot. So
Okay.
now that's in a lot of other spot, you know, because geez, they're shooting pigs in Texas out of a helicopter. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Ted Nugent.
yeah. So, you know, every state is going to have different game and different rules that apply to those different game species, and I'm not an expert, so I'm certainly not the guy to say absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I watch movies, and not movies but you know, hunting shows, I should say, you know,
Yeah.
you often hear them say we can't hunt the rest of the day because we need at least one night from when we fly in before we're
Yeah.
legally allowed to go to hunt. So these are the only reasons I know these things, outside of, you know, the occasional conversation I might have with hunters around Canada. But that was in a past life as the president, and then flying to a couple of conferences. So it is interesting. But I know that the trad bow guys in Arizona are having a big conversation about this right now, just because I happen to follow along with them on Facebook. So the conversation is taking place in other spots, and I guess that's why I kind of push the conversation that way. So for new hunters right now, cell cameras, apple piles, you know, as far as deciding for yourself whether or not you want to hunt out of a tree, or if you prefer to stay on the ground, and both are, you're less likely to have a serious accident hunting if you're hunting out of a ground blind. That's a gimme. Nobody can argue that. That's the worst thing that pretty much happens to you in a ground blind would be, I suppose, you know, if an arrow came loose or cuts because it's an enclosed area, and with the razor blade on the end of your arrow, there are certain things you need to be considerate of. But those same things, more or less, still apply when you're up in a tree, except that when you drop an arrow, it falls to the ground. And as you climb down, you have to be keenly aware of where
That's right.
But you know, if you fall out of your chair in a ground blind, you know, you feel foolish, hurts your pride, that's for sure. But if you fall out of your chair without a restraint on of some kind in a ground blind, I mean, I know all too well, I broke my humerus, but I was lucky to only break my humerus, you know, and that was on the climb down. I was actually tied in, of course, when I was in the stand, but I didn't take a safety line into that stand because it was a friend's, and that was my mistake. And so if you're not 10 feet off the ground, you can't fall 10 feet to the ground. So it is something to consider as a new bow hunter. You first started hunting out of a tree stand, Phil?
No, it was always, I'd always go in and like to walk around and look at the area, you know, and I still like doing that. And then, Yeah, I won't do it where I got my stand and blind. I'll scout, just scouting, and my biggest deer I ever almost shot with a bow was on the ground in the sanctuary.
Okay.
My first deer that I got with the bow was in the sanctuary, and I was set up over a scrape too. It was a mock scrape that I had made, and uh, I was in a blind that I made, not a just in between some trees, and
Right.
put some brush up, and then it was a 4 point buck, I think it was, something like that, and it was yeah, it was that was exciting, all by myself too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And these are
yeah,
some of the things that brings up the topic about, I'm going to call it deer shaming, but the idea that you have to take a mature deer, something that's 4.5+ years old or over 140 inches. There's a lot more pressure on new hunters via internet and hunting shows, and even hunters in our communities that do tend to think that way. I guess I would caution them: go out, enjoy your hunt, and shoot a legal deer. And if you manage to do that with archery equipment in your first couple of years, you're ahead of this curve.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Put some meat in the freezer, enjoy it, and then later, as you become a more experienced hunter, if you want to set the additional challenge of taking a 4.5-year-old deer, then it's your choice
yeah,
to do that. Try not to succumb, to peer pressure, I guess is the way that I like to say it.
yeah,
Here in Nova Scotia, I would say that we don't, some areas in the States do have to do proper management tools, and they have these, must have at least 3 points or 4 points aside, or,
yeah,
these kinds of things. And that is a management tool that their natural resources departments are using to either keep people from taking small bucks for whatever reason, or trying to perhaps have a more of a trophy, and I use that word carefully, a trophy industry, because a lot of them depend on hunters from outside of state to come and
that's
spend
right.
money in the state in order to hunt these big bucks. So there's a lot of different things going on when you see that type of conversation taking place outside of places like Nova Scotia. So, anything you want to say about big deer? I mean, what's the biggest deer, Phil?
Uh, Biggest deer I shot?
Yeah.
Uh, no, I haven't really. I'd say I had some 8 points, but small rack 8 points. It was deer right here, not far from my place here.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest deer, and it was probably 210, something like that. Yeah,
Oh,
but
as far as weight,
know,
yeah, 210 pounds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was 210, yeah, something like that. But
Yeah.
it was I mean, it was a mature deer for sure. It might have even been beyond, like, and just had a small rack because he was getting old.
Right. Yep.
That's what I'm figuring, because I mean, it wasn't a good eating deer, that's for sure.
Is
but
uh,
but
uh,
one
yeah.
we all got
You
eaten
have to
though.
marinate that guy a little bit,
Yeah,
where you put him.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he made good jerky.
yeah, yeah, and pepperoni.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing to talk about to new hunters. I mean, once you do sort of have the game animal, what are some of your preferred ways to get your meat cut up? What are some of the things that, I mean, do you do the same thing every year, or?
Yeah, but, well, it's been a while since I got a deer now. So, but we usually like say beer, and lots of I had lots of beer and beer meat, so we get a lot of hamburg, and the steaks are always good. Um, don't On a deer, I don't care for the roasts on them. I just It's not for me. But now a moose roast is excellent.
Right.
Cooked for a long time and and that's real good. The gravy and all that stuff. That's prime there.
Yeah.
But the deer, it seems as though on a roast of a deer. It's the fat or something gets, I don't know, in your mouth or something, and
Oh, that
I
the
don't.
film. A
Yeah,
little
that's
bit.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think it does depend a little bit on how you cook it and a couple of different things: how old the deer was, how big the deer was, early season, late season. There are
yeah,
certainly a lot of variables there, but I would say that a lot of bow hunters tend to either are either successful in the early season, or
yeah,
perhaps the very late season, almost post rut. When the big deer or even the small deer tend to make a few extra mistakes and give us that short chip shot of
yeah.
15 to 20 yards. So that there
Well,
are.
yeah. This year there was definitely more deer in our area, like for sure. It was way more deer, and I had people come in that say,
And
ah,
where exactly was that, Phil? I'd like to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there was people that come in and said that there was more buck ratio than does this year too, and
I
that's different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was in our area where we're at. There was, I mean, there was four of us up there, so uh, yeah, there was a few of the stands had more bucks to tell by the camera, but then the ones that they were hunting, there was more does, right? There's,
Yeah.
I know that we did have some doe tags, but one of the guys took a doe. Then that was mainly for camp meat, right? So
Yep.
so
Yeah.
it
That's
wasn't a big deer.
I know that at our camp, it was just myself and Dave, of course, whose camp it is that we hunt out of, and Teddy, my youngest. And all three of us drew doe tags this year out of the possible 400 and 106. And
Yeah,
the only person I think that was probably going to fill that tag because we're trying to micromanage. We're looking
yeah.
at what's going on in the area ourselves through cameras. And I only had, I think, one doe on camera at three different spots that I had cameras set up at, and she just walked by. That was it.
Okay.
She just whoop,
Yeah,
that was it.
yeah.
And there was an 8 point on her rear end. It was during the rut.
Okay.
Even late season, no does hit my apple piles.
Is that
So
right?
yeah, so I probably had 6 or 7 different bucks on camera, and
Okay.
it was a video of the doe actually.
Yeah.
She just walked by. So strange for up my way. I haven't seen a fawn while in the stand in a couple of years now. Occasionally I do see them on camera, but there is something going on, and I'm not a
Well,
biologist. I can't say for sure.
I, yeah, I know that we went a lot of years without seeing fawns, and we mainly we're putting the blame on the bears. The bears are right there in the spring when they're being born.
Uh,
They're covering a lot of area,
yeah.
and they say that even up in the highlands where the moose are the calves are being born, the bears will move into that area when that happens. So
Yeah.
you know they're a predator for moose too.
I believe that in Newfoundland, as an example, I believe there was a paper I read, and I'd have to try and dig it up now. So this might want to be fact checked before anybody goes, Travis said. But I was reading something, and I'm fairly certain it was in Newfoundland, that the black bears are the #1 predator of moose calves, not #1. And that led me to start thinking, well, if they're capable of taking moose calves, they're certainly capable of taking deer fawns.
Yeah,
And then in a lot of parts of Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia is still a fairly decent sized chunk of land, bear numbers aren't going to be growing everywhere necessarily, but it does appear that they are growing in a great many areas. And when that bear population does go up, it increases the opportunity more bears to stumble upon fewer fawns.
yeah.
That you got to start to think there are some that are definitely being taken by bears, and
Yeah.
it could
We
be.
saved. Well, there. I guess it was probably 10 years ago or so, or maybe more. We were almost to the sanctuary driving in, and a fawn and this wasn't hunting season. It was early. A fawn come up over on the road, and I thought it was going to run us right over.
Right.
And there was a bear coming right up across the chopping right after it. And when he spotted the truck, he flipped right around.
Yeah.
Instead of the fawn, he was going to run the truck over.
Yes. Yeah. And that's I think that's something that is happening a great deal more often than the once in a while. It's bears are opportunistic feeders. They're omnivores, I believe, is the word that is quite often thrown around. And they're going to. I mean, if it's easy food, it's bear food.
Yeah.
That's if it's a more difficult food, well, that bear's got to be pretty hungry to be putting that much effort into getting food, because there's usually a much easier food source around. So if it's easy, the bears are after it. And a fawn, there's not a whole lot, too much easier. Even humans are able to kidnap fawns every year in the spring.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't take much for a bear to get one if we're picking them up and taking them into to places to have them. What's the word I'm looking for? They were abandoned, and unfortunately, that's not always the case. That's usually people misunderstanding how fawns and their mothers relate. But we'll go into that some other time, I'm sure. It's been fantastic having you on. We probably could have spoken for a much longer period of time. You and I very rarely ever only speak for half an hour.
Yeah.
And I do hope to have you on again. I think this was a great episode because it allowed us to talk about some new bow hunting things, but the conversation evolved and we touched on a lot of great subjects that need a lot of more discussion by our community, in my opinion. And I think someone who's been in touch with the archery community as long as you have, it's great to hear your side of some of these debates and what's going on in our forests and with our game animals. So thank you. Appreciate it. And for anybody who's looking to get into archery, Phil is here in, Dartmouth, Cow Bay area. Look him up. All kinds of wonderful shops all across Nova Scotia, of course. And Phil, to be certain everybody understands it, you're not just traditional archery. You handle the compound side as well, right, in the shop?
Yeah, some, but not big time. I mean, my traditional side is where the bread and butter is for me on this part. Not that I'm making rich or anything, but but it's there's nobody else doing it, right? You go right across I think you'd end up being in Quebec before you found a traditional dealer, right?
Yeah,
selling some of the things that I have, unique things, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe, but just before we stop, that's something I think that is really important for somebody who's particularly interested in traditional archery and getting into that. I don't take anything away from some of the dealers that are trying to help some of the traditional archers out there by bringing in some gear, but they don't necessarily always have everything in the amount, and it's not that they don't have the expertise, they don't have the experience perhaps that you have, that's for sure, but there are a number of little things that as a traditional archery, if you are somewhere in the vicinity of Phil's shop, I certainly learned a whole lot of what I know through Phil and the community that kind of surrounds him as traditional archery. So yeah, go out, check them out. Thanks, Phil. I'm going to let you go, and we're going to talk again real soon. Thanks so much.
Okay, see ya.
Hey guys, it's the following morning after my conversation with Phil Nelson from Phil's Archery Shop and from the bow hunting community and the trad community, I suppose, more than any other. But there's a little edit because we were considering stopping and doing a part 2. Then we decided that we weren't going to do that. So there's a little edit where you kind of see a little bit of a skip. And because I'm trying to keep this as non-edited as possible, I felt I would explain how that kind of went. So I just took out that little part. We're going to have another interview sometime in the new year and continue with the conversation. So so many great things to continue to talk about with people. I'm really, again, I say this at the end of every video, I enjoy this. And I think that as time progresses and I get used to it and my guests get used to it, you know, when we start returning, you might see more and more in detail conversation about particular subjects. That's my hope anyway. So I hope you enjoyed it. Comment below if there are little tidbits or anything like that, that as a bow hunter here in Nova Scotia, you want to let those that are new to bow hunting know, little secrets and whatnot, or if you think there's something that perhaps myself and another guest or you could talk about to help new bow hunters in Nova Scotia and around the Maritimes and around the country in general, I suppose. But again, I'm trying to stay maritime centric and not branching out too far. Really would like this vlog, I guess, if that's what we're calling it, to try to be somewhere that maritimers are able to go to and hear conversations about their own backyard. So that's what I'm trying to do. Lots on the horizon. I reached out to a number of people, and the new year is looking busy. So I'm pleased, and I'm so very happy and grateful that so many wonderful guests are not only agreeing but happy to speak with me and see how this goes. So to the woods, boys and girls, and we'll see you very, very soon. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and in the new year, you know, we have so much as a community to discuss and continue to debate and make decisions. So yeah, thank you all very, very much. To the woods.